Good morning, I'm Steve McClure and I represent the 54th District here in the Illinois State Senate. And before I became a state senator, I was a prosecutor right here in Sangamon County. And we are here this morning for one reason: to protect kids in Illinois schools. We keep hearing shocking reports from across the state about incidents where students have been sexually assaulted at schools. And some schools appear to be sweeping these incidents under the rug. Here's what can't be swept under the rug: the real pain caused by sexual violence and the real danger that a perpetrator of that kind of violence poses to victims, other students, and staff. The survivors of such violence deserve to go to school without fear of running into their rapists. Other students should not have to fear being the next victim. And the students who commit such acts should go to an alternative learning center, like a safe school, where they can get treatment and be around staff who can ensure that everyone is protected. And that's why I filed Senate Bill 2991, to require that schools expel students who sexually assault or attempt to sexually assault students at school, on a school bus, or at a school event. When I filed this bill last year, parents across the state were stunned to find out that this bill was even necessary. Under current law, a student who brings brass knuckles to school with the intent to use them is expelled for a year, even if they never actually use the brass knuckles. But a student who rapes another student in a school bathroom is not automatically expelled. As outrageous as that is, it is also outrageous that this bill has not passed the General Assembly yet. So here we are once again trying to protect students at school and hoping that this year will be different than the last. And now I introduce you to Jessica Johnson and her daughter, Amaya Blair.
Thank you. My name is Jessica Johnson. I am the mother of Amaya Blair, who was sexually assaulted in school in a classroom in the fall of 2022. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I consider myself as a voice for others who've been silenced by the ongoing sexual violence in our school system. This bill is about schools taking the correct measures to protect our children and creating safer places for survivors to come forward. It is time for schools to stop re-victimizing survivors of sexual violence by allowing the offender to stay in the school. For example, at the walkout at our situation, there was a student that approached me and thanked me for speaking up for her and others because she had to walk past her offender every day. This bill provides for the offender's removal rather than sending a message to the victim that because they spoke up, the survivor should be the one removed and isolated from the school. As someone who was fortunate enough to be able to fight by getting farther away from the district, I also understand that everybody's not fortunate to do so. I believe we should do better at protecting our children because when we send them away for school during the day, that should be the last place where we have to worry about these types of things. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Peden, and for over a decade, I've been a proud public school educator here in Springfield. I'm the mother of two, and for the past 3 years now, I have served as an advocate for the safety of all students. I stood here just last year with Senator McClure advocating for Senate Bill 98, which unfortunately did not make it to the Senate floor for a vote. So today I am here to reinforce this mission as Senate Bill 2991. Last year, I shared the nightmare that my family endured. My 10-year-old daughter was the victim of a week-long series of admitted sexual assaults by a 14-year-old student. These attacks happened on the school bus and at the school bus stop. When we presented the school with an emergency order of protection, we were promised a safety plan. For the sake of time, I will summarize the safety plan. It included nothing more than putting my daughter and her abuser on different buses and adjusting their schedules so that the two wouldn't meet in school or at the bus stop. The safety plan was shared with the bus company, my daughter's 5th grade teacher, and the office staff. Nobody else knew about the assaults. No one else knew of the safety plan. No one was keeping the students safe for future assaults to prevent from occurring. I'm sharing this with you to provide transparency for how sexual assaults are currently being handled in our schools. The protocols that are being used are continuing to allow students to be victimized. This safety plan did nothing to keep my daughter and the other students safe. It was merely just a way to keep my daughter and the other student from coming in contact with each other, and we already had an order of protection for that. After 3 weeks of this safety plan, that was the only means of protection offered from the school district. After several meetings with several different levels of the school administration and multiple court orders, the student was finally removed from the public school and sent to an alternative school setting. Once my daughter was finally gifted the peace of mind of knowing that the student that assaulted her would no longer be at school or on the school bus, she began to re-attend school and start to piece her life together. Never did we imagine that we would again have to advocate for this student to not ride the bus or attend public schools for the following school year. But on August 1st, 2024, I received a phone call asking that my daughter switch buses this year and ride the K through 4th grade school bus so that the student that assaulted her could ride the 5th through 12th grade school bus and attend public schools again. My family again had to advocate for the safety of all students, and through court orders were able to make the bus stop an area where the student was prohibited from being at. Since the public school bus wasn't an option for the other student, the family finally did and didn't have any other transportations for him to get to school. The family agreed to send him to the alternative school so that he could receive transportation on a bus through the alternative school. A full year has now passed since I first brought this to your attention, and in that time, my family's fight hasn't just been about healing, it's also been about the basic right to safety. Ultimately, it was the court system, not the school district, that provided a resolution. The courts have now ruled that this student is a sexual predator and a danger to his peers, prohibiting him from attending schools, riding public school buses, or being in the presence of any child under the age of 14. This begs a haunting question. If the legal system clearly recognizes the danger of this individual that he possesses to our children, why is our school system still failing to see it? We have a zero tolerance for students that bring weapons, such as a gun, to school, but in this case of sexual violence, the student's body is the weapon. Under our current system, we are allowing that weapons are being brought back onto the school bus and into the hallways, hidden behind safety plans that offer no real protection. We missed this opportunity to fix this last year. Over the past year, how many other safety plans have failed other children? How many other parents have had to choose between their child's education and their child's physical safety? Senate Bill 2991 isn't just about changing a line of text in our laws. It's about common sense. It's a declaration that we will no longer prioritize the rights of a known offender over the physical and emotional security of the student body. I have dedicated my life to education. Education is my passion. But this experience has taught me a hard truth. Academic success is impossible without physical safety. Please do not let another year pass without action. Do not make me stand here for a third time to advocate for what should be a fundamental right. Let's choose to protect our students now by passing Senate Bill 2991. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Ward, and I'm the CEO for the Illinois Coalition Against Sexual Assault, a statewide network of 31 rape crisis centers located across Illinois. I appreciate the opportunity to voice ICASA's support for Senate Bill 2991 and to note our appreciation to Senator McClure and Representative Davidsmeyer for sponsoring the bill. Thank you to the families who came here today to share their stories. And on behalf of ICASA, I am so sorry for the trauma that brought you here, and I appreciate and admire your bravery for speaking out. ICASA Rape Crisis Centers frequently work closely with schools to provide prevention education programs as well as resources and referrals for students in need of rape crisis services. We know from experience that many, if not most, schools respond compassionately and appropriately to survivors, but most and all are not the same thing, and this bill addresses that difference. We need all schools to protect survivors and to hold those who cause them harm accountable for their actions. We've seen far too many instances where the survivor is the one who ends up having to change schools to feel safe, but then becomes separated from their support system of their friends and familiar teachers and staff. Schools should be a safe space for students, and survivors should be protected. It makes sense to have an expulsion provision to temporarily remove students who have committed sexual harm at school. Senate Bill 2991 would apply the same expulsion requirement for sexual violence that occurs at school, on the bus, or during school activities as currently exists for students who bring a weapon to school, whether that student with the weapon harmed someone or not. The student who caused harm may be eligible to be transferred to an alternative school, and the survivor would have 1 year to heal before they could return. ICASA has heard from survivors that this change to the school code would help them, and ICASA stands with the survivors. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer, and I represent the 100th District, which is all or part of 10 counties on the western side of the state. I want to thank Senator McClure for bringing this issue forward, and I want to thank the advocates, and most of all, I want to thank the families who have come forward to support their loved ones and their kids. To continue to come out and to advocate for themselves, they're also advocating for other parents. I'm a parent. I've got 2 kids, and I can't imagine having to go through something like this. The reality of what we're doing here is we are protecting victims, right? It's much easier to sweep something under the rug and pretend something didn't happen, but it doesn't help the victims and it doesn't help the offender. At the end of the day, we need to make sure that victims are safe, that it doesn't happen again, and that the individual who offended gets the help that they need as well, so it never happens again. We need to make sure that this never happens again. And 0 is a hard number to get to, and especially in our society, it's difficult, but we need to be at 0. So with that, I want to turn it over to Senator Jill Tracy.
Thank you, Representative Davidsmeyer. Good morning, and thank you. I so appreciate everybody to be here on this very important issue. I'm State Senator Jill Tracy, and I represent the 50th Senate District, which is in West Central Illinois. Schools should, as we said, school facilities should be safe havens for learning. Parents send their children to school expecting they will be protected both physically and emotionally. But for victims of sexual assault, school can become a place of fear. Several years ago in my district, I learned of a case involving a 4-year-old student who was sexually assaulted on a school bus. Despite the seriousness of the act, the student responsible was allowed to return to that same school environment. Think about what that means for the victims. They walk the same hallways. They live in constant anxiety of seeing the person who harmed them. That is not safety, it's not accountability, and should never be acceptable. The mental and psychological impact of sexual assault on a young person is profound. Victims often struggle with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, and declining academic performance. Some withdraw from activities, some transfer from schools, some stop attending altogether. In the case of my district, that's exactly what happened. The family used their own private funds to hire an attorney and pursue every legal option, including orders of protection, just to keep their daughter safe. Through a tax scholarship program, they sent their daughter to private school, eventually making the decision to homeschool her when she entered high school. No family should have to spend their savings or uproot their child's education just to feel safe. When a victim feels forced to leave while the perpetrator remains, the system has absolutely failed. Senate Bill 2991 ensures that when a student commits sexual assault using force or the threat of force on school property or at a school-related event, there will be serious consequences, a minimum of 1 year expulsion. This bill is narrowly focused on violent conduct involving force. It allows for a case-by-case review, and it complies with federal protection for students with disabilities. Finally, it provides the possibility of alternative education programs. This is not about politics. It's not partisan. It's about protecting children. Illinois already mandates expulsion for bringing a firearm to school. Sexual assault is also a violent act that shatters a sense of safety in our schools. Our policy should reflect that seriousness. I'm proud that this legislation has bipartisan support because protecting students from sexual violence should unite us all. At the end of the day, this bill sends a clear message. Schools are for learning, not for violence. Victims deserve protection, and accountability matters. And thank you, and I'm going to turn it back over to Senator McClure to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tracy. I do want to say thank you to all of our co-sponsors of this bill. I think it's the most co-sponsored bill currently in the state Senate. And I especially want to thank everyone who stood with us here this morning. This was not easy and very courageous, because everyone up here is here to protect people into the future, to protect our kids, and to try to get people that are on the wrong path right now on the right path, which I think is very noble. So this bill is currently in the Criminal Law Committee. I am asking for this bill to be heard, and our hope is that you won't see us again next year for the same press conference, because this important bill gets passed this year. Thank you very much.